Mask all, mask all. Very Eastern transcendental in orientation, don't you think? By random chance of birth, I happened to grow up just across the Hudson River from Manhattan. And just like Eva Gabor's character in Green Acres, I will admit that in one of the largest cosmopolitan urban centers in America, there is a bit of condescension that becomes a part of your perspective and orientation, even if Green Acres is the place for you. And I believe that most would agree that there is a level of respect and an expectation of greater quality, finer things in life, for those who report for national news organizations, as opposed to those in small-town local affiliates. And that this particular story was a joint effort of two news reporters in a place not like New York. Kaylin Kluck, that is the name that is on the story, and you can't make this up. And she was joined in this piece of journalism, shall we say, for broadcast by one Jeff Keeling at WJHL, delivering news on Channel 11 to the Tri-City area. Tri-City. Yes, I am not making this up. They promote the news station as Tri-City. Okay. Tri-Country. What? Wait, which makes this all the more entertaining. And Kluck and Keeling go back to Greenbow, Alabama, and they put and they put their heads together for a story to let big Tri-City know that they were ahead of the power curve on the facial coverings mandates, and have this headline on May 26, 2020. I quote, "Law professor, Virginia mask mandate is constitutional," unquote. Now remember, it said legal expert. Now, if you go to the Lincoln Memorial University website and you locate the Duncan School of Law, not spelt like Dunkin' Donuts, but it sounds a lot like Duncan. Stuart Harris is actually listed as working in the Department of University Advancement, and he is the director of major gifts for DSOL, which I assume is Duncan School of Law, slam dunk. Yes, constitutional scholar, at least in Tri-City. At least it wasn't Dorothy Harris driving Forrest Gump to school. Be patient, this actually gets better. I don't know if you have ever heard of Lincoln Memorial University Law School, but most reasonable persons outside of Tri-City Johnsonville would agree that it isn't the equivalent of Harvard Law. But just from curiosity, we engaged in some quick research and learned that Lincoln Memorial University Law School is ranked 148 of 194 best law schools in the nation. Kind of like near the bottom. And maybe if you are in the Tri-City area, that's as good as Harvard being so far out of reach. So far down that even down looks up. And assuring the folks in Tri-City, our dynamic duo of Kluck and Keeling reported, quote, constitutional scholar. Hell, the mailman is a scholar in your town. Constitutional scholar Stuart Harris told News Channel 11 he believes the governor does have the authority to mandate mask wearing. So it is written, so it shall be done. And they report that he said a 1905 case that went to the Supreme Court during the early era of smallpox vaccinations, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, was precedent-setting with regard to the police powers invested in state governments. First of all, technically, in this usage, the term would be vested, a legal thing, and not invested in state governments. They're not giving you money. Write that down, Kluck and Keeling. Two entirely different words, but obviously not in Tri-City or for our dynamic duo, Kluck and Keeling. Trust me, it actually still gets even better. It couldn't get any worse. And according to this news report from our dynamic duo of Kluck and Keeling, how about this? Do not write your own stories. Just rip and read off the Associated Press wire. According to this news report from our dynamic duo of Kluck and Keeling in Tri-City, they report, and the Supreme Court basically said the state has the power effectively to strap you down and stick a needle in your arm and make you get vaccinated, said Harris, which quite frankly is far more intrusive than putting you under quarantine and certainly much more intrusive than mandating you wear a mask when you're out in public. First of all, does that even sound like an educated person, much less a law professor? I don't know ambulance chasing attorneys and queens that talk like that. I want to take some time, however, with this because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings unnecessarily. Because our dynamic duo of Kluck and Keeling did do their Tri-City best to get ahead of the power curve and did at least recognize that there might be a connection to law and a legal issue, and did find someone in the legal profession to provide an opinion. So in Christian love, we can give them an E for effort. But in the original Greek, mind you, as seminarians and theologians often remind us, the word sin is the term derived from for archery. It's an archery term, and it means to have missed the mark. Are we clear? No bullseye. Let the church say censor for medical misinformation. Maybe we should call the FCC to save Tri-City, declare a state of emergency. God knows if anyone is still alive with news like that. But like Justice John Marshall Harlan in Jacobson v. Massachusetts had used the ill-conceived notions of the appellant in that case, who believed he had rights in the preamble, good God, to make a point. At the outset, in all fairness, our dynamic duo in Tri-City, Kluck and Keeling, may have been early and may have been as wrong as two left shoes. But there have been some folks, and you know who you are, in far more cosmopolitan locales, allegedly, who took those same damn words as the gospel truth. As we have stated many times, Justice Harlan emphasizes multiple times in this opinion, if you read it, that it is imperative when dealing with the law to reference a primary source of law as legal authority. Don't just say what's in your head. And why our dynamic duo in Tri-City felt obligated to locate a law professor or just any law professor to explain a court case that they could have located on their own on the internet to actually read for themselves, and why nobody else in far more cosmopolitan areas allegedly exercise this same due diligence, I cannot say. But there is an excellent example of this point from Justice Louis Brandeis in 1927 case of Buck v. Bell, a case that found its genesis in Amherst County, Virginia. Again, not the most cosmopolitan place in even Virginia. I don't know why we say Buchanan and not Buchanan. I don't know why the folks in Henrico County say Hungary and not Hungary. It's just Virginia. But he writes, it is better for all the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime, or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. The principle that sustains compulsory vaccinations is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. Citing to Jacobson v. Massachusetts, a case involving a feeble-minded white woman. Let the church say, turn to your neighbor and have them say, the preacher is talking to me. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough, that paragraph concluded. Here we find both the theme of that which is non-essential combined with the most relied upon case in pandemic, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, which the Tri-City area may be convinced granted plenary powers to the state to do whatever they wish, as long as they alluded generally to public health, which is not so. And Justice Harlan took great pains to emphasize this point if you actually read it, because you don't want to be that little feeble-minded white woman getting your tubes cut because people thought you was stupid. But perhaps some scientists made science political in that case. Just saying. While Justice Harlan conceded that in the exercise of the police power, the liberty secured by the Constitution of the United States to every person within its jurisdiction does not import an absolute right in each person to be at all times and in all circumstances wholly free from restraint. Quoting from Mugler v. Kansas, an 1887 Supreme Court case, Justice Harlan wrote, "If a statute purporting to have been enacted to protect the public health, the public morals, or the public safety has no real or substantial relation to those objects, or is beyond all question a plain, palpable invasion of rights secured by the fundamental law, it is the duty of the courts to so adjudge and thereby give effect to the Constitution. But if you want to say goodbye to rights because you feel like it, just think about the consequences, that old devil consequences." And in that case, the Supreme Court agreed that nothing clearly appears that would justify this court in holding it to be unconstitutional and inoperative in its application to the plaintiff in error. Justice Harlan specifically stated expressly, until otherwise informed by the highest court of Massachusetts, we are not inclined to hold that the statute establishes the absolute right that an adult must be vaccinated if it be apparent or can be shown with reasonable certainty that he is not at the time a fit subject of vaccination, or that vaccination by reason of his then condition would seriously impair his health or probably cause his death. And providing a warning to the future for others who might get ill-conceived ideas, Justice Harlan acknowledged the police power of the state, whether exercised by the legislature or by a local body, acting under its authority, may be exerted in such circumstances or by regulations so arbitrary and oppressive in particular cases as to justify the interference of the courts to prevent wrong and oppression. But again, if you want to give up your liberty, I ain't your mama. And so whether you are in Tri-City, other place, more or less cosmopolitan, educated, or enlightened, it should be clear if you read the case. If you read the case, upon which many have relied to state that the Supreme Court basically said the state has the power effectively to strap you down and stick a needle in your arm and make you get vaccinated, is clearly erroneous, leaving a reasonable person with the firm conviction that a mistake has been made in that statement. A mistake has been made. And the only person who might disagree with that would be making a scientific issue political for themselves. Or in the alternative, they are just plain bamified stupid. Your choice. Hey, Vern. Live long and prosper. Saul Williams. This briefing is unclassified. As you will, my name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am Mike Webb, Arlington Public School Board. Let's keep Mike Webb away from our schools. Honest. There we go. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
I used to be a Power Ranger in a former life. Thunk, I could have had a vaccine.